Welcome back to MINExpo International 2024. I'm Ashley Burke with the National Mining Association, and you're watching NMA TV. Now, I am absolutely thrilled to be joined today by Kevin O'Leary. He is an entrepreneur, he's a TV star, a successful businessman, he's Mr. Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here today.
Appreciate it, thank you.
So I've read your book, The Cold Hard Truth. I know you're very focused on turning a profit, looking at how quickly we can do these things. The mining industry, it takes us here in the US up to 29 years to bring a mine into production. When you look at an industry like this, what's your reaction?
That is faulty policy, actually. And that I think other countries in the world have started to realize that the permitting process for their mining industries has to be modified, and many of them have done that. China basically doesn't have any permits. So if the supreme leader wants a mine, he gets a mine the next day. And so that is a huge advantage because they are taking a leadership role in the world in many, many different minerals and metals. And that's actually a competitive weapon for an economy. And I think we're starting to realize that here. Other countries, even Canada and Australia, are more advanced than we are in some of their policies at the provincial and federal level. So that's an issue I think this organization should focus on, because it requires lobbying, explaining to senators, governors, and lawmakers why that delay puts us at a significant competitive disadvantage, specifically to China, because there's obviously an economic competition going on, and this sector is getting, for the first time in decades, a lot of the spotlight. I mean, the lack of graphite or the lack of nickel online or whatever it is, we can't afford to be not having our own control of those for our own. We need it for every sector of our economy, all 11 sectors.
And that's what I want to hear about from you, because you are a sophisticated businessman. You have fought China in other sectors. I mean, they've got a 2-decade advantage on us when it comes to minerals. They're pushing that minerals button on graphite, antimony, what have you, their export controls. How do we counter that China influence?
Well, we have to, unfortunately, and I'm not a big fan of tariffs, but in the case of China, I want to go to blowtorch heat. I want to really heat it up, because we don't have a level playing field, and that's what I want. Whatever the policy is on China, whatever they do to us, we'll do to them. And a good example that has nothing to do with mining, but it's TikTok. I think that thing's going to get shut down January 19th. Congress has put an order out, that's it. And we're going to start to go to war with China if we don't get access to their markets and their IP and their courts and their legal system the way they use ours. But it also goes to figuring out, how do we compete with bringing on resources at the same pace they are? So this is a decision at the state level and the federal level to understand if there's a resource in the ground, it becomes almost national defense, if you want to call it that. So prioritize it in a different way and start to say, we have to have nickel, we have to have graphite, we have to have these minerals and these metals. It's not an option. And so we're going to designate these as something else. Also, the technology, as evidenced by your own conference here, is so advanced in carbon sequestration and mining on a cleaner basis that people have ignored this for 20 years. They don't understand how advanced the industry has become to extract minerals and metals from the earth, not in the ways we did 50 years ago. It doesn't have to be as pollutive.
Sure. Now I want to switch gears for a minute, and I want you to speak to the entrepreneurs that we have in this building. We've got more than 2,000 exhibitors with incredible innovations that they're bringing into the field, but this is a hard industry to get into. What would you tell them? Because I know one of the things that I found really enlightening in your book was how you talk about failure and sticking with things. So what do you see failure playing as a part of the role of the entrepreneur? How does that play into things for some of those aspiring entrepreneurs?
Well, failing is going to happen if you're an entrepreneur, or pivoting is going to happen, or a combination of both. You're starting to fail and you realize it's not working and you pivot. That can also be a good outcome. But in the context of mining entrepreneurship, mining is a very specific industry, and it's all about getting the lowest cost with the most productivity. That's what it is. If you come up with a product or service that enhances that, you're solving a problem. And then your only job is to explain what the payback period is, because miners are used to waiting decades to be paid back. if your product or service gets a payback of 3, 4, 5 years, you may be selling a lot of it here at this conference because people are willing to try it. And trial of the product or service is also a very good idea. This industry is really run by about 25 entities in terms of the leadership, maybe even less, that once they adopt a platform, everybody wants it. So you got to let them try it, and word of mouth happens, one mine to another, whatever it is. That's how this industry works. I mean, I've been, an investor in mining, particularly junior mining, my whole life. I mean, those outcomes are wild. Either you make 100x on your money or nothing.
Right.
But you never know, and hope springs eternal. It's particularly now, because I'm an investor in gold, and we're having a really good year.
You sure are.
we are, and it's been a great run, and I continue to hold a 5% weighting, and I like to own the bullion, but it's got to be extracted from somewhere. So anyways, I think there's a lot to be celebrating at this conference, and it's so impressive. And what I love about this place is you're doing deals here, big deals. And so very few conferences go beyond just, I call this swarming, when you get all the swallows in one place to see how many they are. Well, here you're doing it, except there's a lot of rich swallows here that are buying a lot of product and service, which I think is great. It's just great.
Well, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
You got it. Thank you.
And thank you all for tuning in. We will be right back this afternoon.